Hello there and welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television with me, Cynthia Are. It's the last Friday of the month and we've got a great lineup for you. First up is the International Day for Support of Victims of Torture, and we listen to the story of a Gambian journalist who was a victim. Also on the program, Burundi opposition parties threaten to boycott the upcoming elections, and later on we bring you our Friday special. Welcome again to Network Africa on Channels Television. We're starting things off with what's happening today. Well, today is June the 26th, a day set aside internationally to support victims of torture. According to the United Nations, this kind of event is deemed essential as torture seeks to annihilate the victim's personality and denies the inherent dignity of the human being in question. The United Nations has never minced words regarding this issue. The organization has condemned torture from the outset as one of the ugliest acts perpetrated by human beings on their fellow human beings. Torture is a crime under international law, and according to all relevant instruments, it is absolutely prohibited and cannot be justified under any circumstances. For this reason, the prohibition forms part of customary international law, which means that it is binding on every member of the international community, regardless of whether a state has ratified international treaties in which torture is expressly prohibited. Now, to show our support to victims of torture on Network Africa, we're going to take a look at the story of a Gambian journalist who was once a victim. His name is Musa Saidykhan. Now, back in 2006, he was arrested, detained, and tortured by Gambian security forces for 3 weeks for exercising his right to express freedom and also for press freedom. The following year, he was given some assistance by the Media Foundation for West Africa, also known as MFWA, in suing the Gambia at the Economic Community of West African States Community Court of Justice. Later on in 2010, the court ruled in favor of Musa, finding that the Gambia had violated his human rights to personal liberty, fair trial, and personal dignity under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The court also awarded $200,000 in compensatory damages. Well, I'll let Musa do more of the talking now as he joins us live on the program from Michigan. Musa, thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thanks for having me on your program.
Well, we're grateful.
I'm so delighted.
We're delighted to have you. Could you just briefly or quickly share your experience with us?
My story is a long story, but I will make it short. I'm a Gambian who is probably around 41 years old. I was the former editor-in-chief of the Independent newspaper in the Gambia. The Independent was a bi-weekly newspaper that also ceased publication when I was arrested on March 27, 2006. Remember, there was a purported foil coup on March 21st, 2006, when the Gambia government accused some civilians and soldiers of taking part in a coup. Of course, as an advocate of democracy and human rights and rule of law, I was never into a coup d'etat. But actually, the government was looking for every avenue to put me behind bar. And because before that, I had been a thorn in their flesh. I was campaigning Gambian issues abroad. I went to South Africa and personally handed over a petition to the former South African President Thabo Mbeki and asked him that there was time for South Africa to stand for Gambian victims, because when South Africa was going through apartheid, the whole African continent supported South Africa. Nigeria played a key role in that. Even small Gambia played a key role in that. Some Gambian families were integrated in the Gambia. Some South African families, in fact, the Gambian students were paying scholarship, they call it apartheid fund. So all that support was given to South Africa. But now that South Africa has become a major player in Africa, at the time was the economic giant of the entire Africa, now Nigeria is. But I asked him for South African support. And I was surprised that he was not aware of most of the things that were happening in the Gambia at the time. But for the fact that I brought that issue up at the Africa Leaders Forum, started the whole campaign or the whole debate around the small Gambia. So I became a problem to the Gambia government. Immediately I arrived from South Africa. I was arrested And luckily, Thabo Mbeki intervened through the Africa Leaders Forum. But before then, after that, from 2005 October up to 2006 March, the Gambia had been, putting me on the hook. There had been a lot of intelligence surveillance on me, but I didn't care because all that I care about was to tell truth to power and to make sure that I serve my news-hungry population. And the government, what they waited for was March 21st, when there was a purported for a coup. We ran a story on the coup, and we published a list of names of people who were secretly arrested by the government. And we know the type of government we were dealing with at the time. All that we knew was that the government was going to execute some of these people, only to tell people that they are not under their control, because they have done that in the past. So when my people arrested that, they used that as an avenue to arrest me. But actually, the whole goal was to, accuse me of, or frame me up in a coup d'etat. But luckily, when I was in jail, all the things were ratted. So I was happy that I'm still, surviving. And, that led to my torture. I was tortured for 3 consecutive nights without a reason. But actually, the reason was because I was told by my torturers that I became a thorn in the government's flesh because I was going around, campaigning aggressively against the Gambia government. So they didn't take it lightly. That was the whole essence of torture. The whole essence of torture was to torture me because they had no evidence against me. Because if they had evidence against me, they would have taken me to court. But they didn't take me to court. I was detained for 22 days without trial, during which I was severely tortured. And if you can look at me, this is a wound, a bayonet wound, because the goal was to break my hand. My hand was broken into 3 pieces. And then also there was this bayonet wound on me because I was told that my only problem was my mouth and my hand. And that's why these marks were left on me forever.
Musa, we just have to ask you at this point. We're very sorry about your experience, but since based on what we're looking at today, I'd just like to ask you before we let you go, and because of time, have you been able to move on? What does torture exactly do? Have you been able to move forward with your life?
Well, actually, I've been able to move forward because I am somebody who believes in faith. I am somebody who is very strong, and I believe that nothing should be able to control me, because the whole essence of torture was to dehumanize me so that I could be reduced into robots. But I refuse that because I believe that I'm a human being.
Yes.
No matter how you torture me, I shouldn't allow myself to be influenced by that torture, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to speak to you the way I am right now. One of the reasons why I'm talking to you is because I believe that my therapy lies in telling my story to the whole world, and I've been doing that effectively, and that's why I am keeping the spirit, and I'm still fighting to make sure that there is a rule of law, democracy, and human rights restored in the Gambia.
Well, we wish you well. Musa, thank you very much for joining us on the program. We appreciate your time. Musa Saidykhan is a Gambian journalist speaking to us from Michigan. Well, coming up on Network Africa, after a long wait, EU leaders finally agreed to confront the migrant crisis. Find out how when we return. Please stay with us.